And with that, we roll into another edition of the virtual Beaver State Tour. Hi, everybody. This is Mike Parker, the voice of the Beavers. And I feel as though, in a sense, I'm a voice of the Beavers crying in the wilderness, hoping that someday someone can hear me again calling a Beaver game. We have missed the games so much that it's almost impossible to articulate just how much we as a Beaver Nation are missing the games and the events that mean so much to us throughout the year. The spring sports, of course, have been hit the most dramatically with the cancellation of the spring sports season. But as we have found out, every program, just as every student and everyone involved at Oregon State University, and I dare say throughout the country, have been hit in profound, impactful ways by the last 10 weeks of essentially a shutdown of life as we have known it. And that's certainly true for our special guest tonight. It's been a pleasure to touch base with all of the head coaches of our excellent programs at Oregon State. We get to meet three more tonight. And just a note, we wrap things up on the virtual state tour on Thursday between 5 and 6 with the new wrestling coach at Oregon State and Chris Pendleton and Mark Barnard, the volleyball coach. But tonight we get to meet coaches, student athletes, and a special guest, a media personality that you'll all be very familiar with, and we'll be happy to hear his story and his connection to Oregon State athletics as we go. But let's get started and welcome in our distinguished guests on this new edition this evening of the virtual Beaver State Tour. And we'll start with someone who, even before the shutdown, was already going through perhaps one of the most challenging years and seasons of her life. But we are grateful to say that she is doing well and making great progress. And it's an honor to welcome, just completing her 23rd year as the head coach for Oregon State Gymnastics, Tanya Chaplin joins us. Coach, good evening. It's great to see your voice, great to see your face, to hear your voice in this strange world that we're in, but a very challenging year it's been for you. We'll get back to a lot of the particulars in a moment, but in a nutshell, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, and good evening, Beaver Nation. It's great to be here. Great to be back with everyone, and I'm doing great. I'm coming along, getting stronger each day, and looking forward to getting back into the gym. And I know we'll be back in there at some point here, and looking forward to being back on the competitive floor with our athletes and student athletes, and just working with them on a day-to-day basis.
Coach, it's great to see you. We'll get back to you on a number of the particulars in your program. Thanks for being here tonight. Also joining us, we have both soccer coaches who are just building exciting and compelling programs. Let's start with women's soccer coach Matt Kagan, as we welcome him in, by any measurement, the most improved team in the country in his first year. To go from an RPI in 2018 of 212 to 28 in his first year. Please join me in welcoming women's soccer coach Matt Kagan. Coach, good evening. It's great to have you with us. How are you tonight?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. A lot of things to explore with you, including your level of fitness, which I think for a lot of coaches, you said you were getting after it. We'll get back to that in a moment, but I see you and our next guest out and about, out on the pavement pretty well in the trails in South Corvallis. So keep up the great work. Joining you in that endeavor, as well as being a papa of he and Hannah with their second child 1 month ago. So Coach Boss, Terry Boss, joining us, the Oregon State men's soccer coach, getting a little bit of a break here. Hannah's taking over. Coach, there's a lot on your plate, even in a shutdown time, if you're the father of a 1-month-old. Congratulations to you and Hannah. How's that going, and how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, Mike, I appreciate having me on. Hello, Beaver Nation. Wish we were in person, but glad to be here and have this touch point. Life's good. You know, we were wondering going into it, is it the best or worst time to have a baby kind of through this epidemic? And you know, it's been a little bit more downtime, had a little bit more time able to help out with the baby. And so we're just taking advantage of it and making the most of it.
We'll stay right here with you and then kind of work our way back to other coaches. But Sophia Hope, born 1 month ago in the midst of all of this. So Did you have to work through some genuine concerns about, did you go to the hospital? How did that all play out? And were you a little at all in any way nervous about that whole process?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it first started to take place, and we realized the seriousness of the situation, and some families, in different parts of the country weren't able to have husbands even in the room, and so we were really lucky to have great care here in Corvallis, and to be honest with you, it was a smooth pregnancy, smooth delivery, and not a lot of activity, so it was honestly a perfect time to have a baby.
Now, it was your second child. You'd had Maya 21 months before.
Yeah.
In that sense, Coach Boss, I'm wondering, did Sophia's birth feel similar in circumstance? I mean, I'm sure the labor differed as they always do for Hannah,
yeah.
But did it feel in a sense about the same, or could you tell there were some qualitative differences?
No, I think it felt the same, and for Hannah and I, we landed on her middle name Hope as just a reminder. And this time, the light is always greater than darkness, and so it was, for us, it was just such a silver lining to, just really be thankful for what we do have, and like I said, we are taking a step back and able to really enjoy this time together as a family.
Congratulations to you. I'm going to bring Coach Kagan back in here for just a second. And Matt, I see you and Coach Boss out and about. We happen to kind of live in the same neighborhood. Louis Quintana was telling us the other day he's running more than he has in a long, long time. Matt, I don't know how exactly the time is going for you, but are you finding that are you continuing to hit the trails out in South Corvallis and throughout Willamette Park and the surrounding areas?
Yeah, I've got my route that I go. It's a little bit more than a mile. I try to do it every day. Before it was, I would say to my team, we got to be as fit as we can, or do what I say and not as I do. And so I'm trying to change that. And my wife is running 4 to 6 miles every day. So I'm not quite there yet, but we're getting there. And, it's a process for me every day. And I hate every single step of the run, but I get it done and I gut it out, and I feel good about myself. It's good.
I've seen you and your wife Jessica and your dog Mookie out and about in South Corvallis. I wanted to ask you about Jessica. She has been a guest on the Joe Beaver Show, our local radio show, recently, as have you, as has Terry. As over these last 10 weeks, I think almost every human being in the state of Oregon has been a guest on the show, as we're trying to fill the time. But Jessica works in the hotel industry. Is her life beginning to pick back up again out at Boulder Falls? Yeah,
she's I think she's got the green light now as phase 1 has kind of started in our counties to kind of get at least the restaurant portion of that property going that way. So I think she's starting that prep, and she's starting to go into work every day and get her staffing together. And then, there's a lot of guidelines she has to follow. So, social distancing and the amount of tables that can be in the restaurant, and there's no bar seating, so what that looks like, and obviously food prep and just ordering food and being able to figure out what's available, because I think there's a lot of meat shortages and things like that she has to work through.
We'll come back around to Mookie and the origins and a shared love that you and Wayne Tinkle and Brent Berry and many, many others have. We'll come to that a little bit later when we have a special visitor on. Coach Chaplin, Tanya, your year was already one of the more challenging and strange ones you've ever had before the shutdown 10 weeks ago occurred, and that you took a leave of absence from January 30th through April 1st to deal with some important issues. Whatever you feel or could share with us, Coach, we'd appreciate that. Tell us a little bit about how you're doing now and what it was like to try to still be the head coach from January 30th through April 1st when dealing with those serious issues.
Right. Well, my husband, Michael, took over as acting head coach while I was in that time period. So I think one of the biggest challenges, and most husbands and wives or partners can understand this, is that you do have to let go of those reins and as he said, I can't be the backseat driver. That was a big part of it. So I said, okay, be careful of how many directions you ask me then. So it was kind of going through that a little bit, but he did a fabulous job with the athletes and the rest of the staff, Brian and Bea and Becca and Mandy Rodriguez stepped in as well. And they just did a really fabulous job of keeping those athletes going, and watching the improvements that they had each week was great to see. I think that, you know, they were just peaking at the right time, and unfortunately it was right before senior night that everything shut down. So that was a challenge in itself, because actually I was going to be in the arena for that competition and celebrating the seniors' last home meet. So not only did they not get to the conference championship or the end of their postseason, but they also didn't get an opportunity to say goodbye to the fans. So we'll look at doing something special for them next year, and try to bring them all back and celebrate that, you know, their accomplishments here at Oregon State, because they're a really special group of young women.
We'll come back around to one of your team members will join us and pop in here a little bit later, Coach. Speaking of special and student athletes that excel on the pitch, in this case, in the classroom, in the community, we want to welcome two student athletes from soccer in. First of all, from the men's soccer team, midfielder Joel Walker joins us. Joel, good evening. Thanks for taking time. How are you doing through all of this? What's your life been like these last 10 weeks?
Mr. Mike Parker, so good to see you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. You know, I have an amazing support system via just phone calls and Zoom calls. And so, you know, I've been making it through during this time, but it's definitely a unique time, but I'm just thankful to be able to continue to grow each day.
I've got to start right here. We're going to also, let me welcome in from the women's soccer team, the outstanding goalkeeper, Bridget Skiba. Bridget, thanks for taking time. Welcome in. I want to ask both of you just about your careers and your lives at Oregon State. But Bridget, how are you tonight? I'm
good. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for being here. Appreciate the bright, big smile that appears genuine and sincere through all of it. It looks like neither of you, as much as you're Zooming, you're not suffering Zoom fatigue tonight, Joel?
I mean, thankfully, this is probably my most exciting Zoom today, so I was ready for it.
Good to hear that. Joel, now, there's one of the notes, I was given a little bit of notes, and I was asked to ask you, and I've never done this before in my life, but here we go. What is your philosophy on cookies?
Oh man, my philosophy on cookies. I came up with this philosophy my freshman year of high school, actually, and it was you can't, because often I like to bake cookies for my friends, and my philosophy was you can't be sad when you're eating a plate of cookies, and so that was my philosophy there. And of course, I don't eat them as much now, you know, being a student athlete, but I still have to bake them for people. And but yeah, I say I don't think you can be sad when you eat a plate of cookies.
Okay. That's a good philosophy. I think almost all of us would agree with that. I'll bring Bridget in to see if she would second that. Bridget, I don't know if you have any philosophy in particular on cookies, but does it sound like Joel's onto something in your opinion?
Oh, totally on board with something. I only have cheat days once a week though, so once a week cookies for me.
Bridget, you thanks. I'm going to spend a little time with you, and we'll get back to Joel a bit here in a moment. But you've started all 19 games this past year, and if I read the numbers correctly, and I'm looking at them just to make sure, 6 solo shutouts this past season, which is 4th in all-time history. And you were part of at Oregon State and part of a team best 4 consecutive shutouts, or the most since 2007. What was that like, Bridget, to be part of that? Not only yourself at the back end, but the entire collective defensive effort to get 4 straight shutouts at one point and 6 overall.
Totally. I think that's a great question. It was definitely a cohesive unit that helped bring those shutouts together, and couldn't have done it without the coaching staff, couldn't have done it without my back line, let alone my whole team. It was just an amazing feeling that whole season, and to be that close, like that just fires us up even more for this upcoming season. But it was a good start. It was a good, good place to be in with all those shutouts and all those records, but there's way more room to improve on. And I think that's super encouraging for us as a team.
And are you able to maintain, Bridget, a sense of excitement about the year ahead, even with the uncertainty about the year ahead? Are you maintaining a training regimen, maintaining enthusiasm, trying to stay in touch with your teammates about what's ahead?
Totally. Yeah. Whatever happens, we're excited to get back together, and whatever it looks like, it might look like different for the season, but regardless, we love playing with each other, and we can't wait until we can all train together. So just taking it one day at a time, that's what I've been doing, and that's been working pretty well.
What have you been able to do in terms of workouts, what you would be doing this time of year normally, but what you're able to do now?
Yeah, so right now we would usually be training. But thankfully my goalkeeper coach, Nick, he has provided me with a lot of individual goalkeeper trainings. And so I've been staying sharp with my footwork and just trying to keep my keeper shape as high as I can. And our strength coach has been giving us a lot of running to do. So we've been given workouts, thankfully, and that's definitely kept us busy.
Among many highlights, and I can tell just listening to you, team wins, team victories, all of that would be first and foremost with you. But I did note that you were tweeted at this past year for some of your amazing saves by none other than Hope Solo, for whom you have high regard. When you saw that, what was it like to have that kind of interaction, social media, with Hope Solo recognizing what you did?
Good grief. It was a dream come true. I always looked up to her as a goalkeeper growing up, and, she's one of the best goalkeepers to have ever played in the women's game. And just to be recognized and acknowledged by her, that meant the world. And to be able to represent the Beavs and getting her to tweet back at us, that was awesome.
And were you able to was it more than just a quick shout out or recognition to you? Did you have a little bit of an exchange with her?
Yeah. She actually follows me on Twitter, surprisingly, which is amazing. But from time to time, she'll be quoting some of the tweets that our Beaver Women's Soccer account tweets. And that's just crazy that she's able to follow along and she's keeping in touch with our team.
I'm going to bring Coach Kagan in here for a moment, then we'll get back to Joel and Coach Boss. But Matt, this person that we're hearing, and I can just tell by interacting a little bit with her, a true leader here, what your program's all about. So maybe Matt, share a little bit about what Bridget's meant to the program.
Yeah, Bridget's, one of the cool things is that Bridget just finished her sophomore year. So she's got 2 more years to go, and she's still, she's very young still, and still has a lot of room to grow, which is awesome. She hasn't hit her ceiling yet, either as a player or a leader. But she has really taken on a leadership role for us. She's, I think, a liaison between the coaches and the players. And our staff asks a lot of her, and she can handle it, and she's been great. She's a vocal leader on the field, off the field. I think her teammates really respect her. And I think she's got all the qualities of what a great leader, can and should be.
Joel, and thank you, Matt. We'll come back to you here in a few minutes. Joel Walker joining us. Joel, what about your own sense of excitement about what's happening within the program on the pitch? We'll get to some of the off the field stuff in a moment, but you and your teammates, how excited are you? How engaged are you able to stay when there's so much uncertainty about what happens this fall?
Definitely, that's a great question. We're extremely excited. Thankfully, a lot of the guys, we actually live together, and so that definitely keeps the passion, keeps the motivation kind of factor there, being able to, do little workouts on our own with one another, just within our dwelling. But just in terms of the season, I was able to hop on a Pac-12 phone call 2 weeks ago, and I was able to share this with a few of the guys. But this is kind of the time where you stripped off maybe the norm of the playing in front of the fans and maybe just the regular kind of routine. This is the time where you continue to follow with the game. You're kind of that little kid again. Like for me, I got my ball. I go out to my front yard. I put on my indoor shoes, and you kind of just like let that little kid again just put the ball at your feet every single day, and kind of being away from that team environment. It's tough, but understand your why and knowing why you're training each and every day. It keeps the fall season and then just future plans just as a big focus there.
How are you training? And Bridget shared a little bit about what she's doing. Have you come up? You've got the ball with you all the time. That's great. But I mean, are there some unique ways and things you found to stay in great condition?
Yeah, definitely. To Bridget's point, shout out to our amazing athletic trainers. They've done a phenomenal job of giving us the resources with our bands and the jump rope. So being able just to get out in front of my house, I have a nice little driveway, be able to knock my workouts out, and then that's where I get my touches as well. And then for anybody who's still in Corvallis, you'll see me running around Corvallis, getting my street tempos in, or just a nice little couple mile jogging.
Nice. Now you were a sprinter though, right? I mean, you were a state champion in sprinting in high school in Colorado Springs. How much does that help you in your sport when you're just constantly moving and running? Did the sprinting background help a lot?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, Coach Bowser probably told me, in terms of speed, is probably one of my best assets right now. But running track in high school would definitely, like, in terms of the mechanics and the form, a few of the guys will tell you, like, it makes all the difference when it comes to being able to have a huge impact in your sprint mechanics.
You are, from what I understand, you will be the SAC president this coming year, whatever that's going to, whatever you're going to be taking on with that, how it's going to look. But how did that come into your wheelhouse, so to speak, Joel? And how excited are you about the responsibilities that come with that?
Oh, I'm so ecstatic. It came into my kind of wheelhouse from Kimia Massey and Lindsay Goodman, our student athlete development directors. And I've been involved with SAC since my sophomore year, I believe. And my sophomore year, I was just more of a kind of background role. I still saw myself as a leader, of course, but I was able to attend the Pac-12 SAC conference in San Francisco at the Pac-12 headquarters, and then kind of just got more involved there. And my role this past year, my junior year, I was a vice president along the amazing Hallie Briscoe, Coach Tanya, all about Hallie. She's a phenomenal leader, and I was going to be the vice president with her, and I'll be on the SAL committee as well, which is dealt with NCAA and Pac-12 legislation. So I kind of had that back end when it came to the student athlete voice, institutional Pac-12 and NCAA legislation. And so kind of going to this year, it was a big passion of mine. I'm extremely passionate about allowing student athletes to use their voice, leverage the platform, not only themselves, but those around them. And that's what SAC's about. And as a president this year, I'm just so thankful to serve alongside. Like Bridget, she's actually going to be our community service chair. I had my interview with her 2 days ago, or was it yesterday? And just getting to serve alongside people like Bridget, it's just been such an honor. And I know moving forward to next year, thanks to amazing just previous presidents like Hallie, Kayla Ellis, 2 years ago, we've been able just to set up a great foundation moving into 2020, 2021.
Well, congratulations on that, Joel. I'm glad you're going to attack that with tremendous enthusiasm, and maybe what could be the most challenging upcoming year, in the world you're in, and as a leader in that, you'll have a lot crossing your plate. We appreciate you, Joel, taking time for us. We're going to bring Coach Boss in and get a thought about you, but thanks for being on with us tonight.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate it.
Okay. Coach Boss, before we jump in and welcome some other guests, give us a quick thought from your perspective, what Joel Walker has meant, and then we'll come back around a little bit to the overall team, but what this young man Joel has meant to you in the program.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I said this last night when I presented him Scholar Athlete of the Year, and I think the best compliment I can give to Joel Walker is he's a man that if there wasn't a 20-year age gap, I'd love for him to marry my daughter. Like, he just is that type of leader. He knows his gifts. He works hard to cultivate them, and he wants to give them away to help other people. And that's really unique and rare for a young man of his age to be so conscious of. You hear it in his language of his purpose and how he can help those around them, and it's unique, and that spills over on the field, in the classroom, in the community. He's a guy that is just. Words will never express the impact he's had on our program and the lives around the community.
Thanks for sharing that. Bridget, we want to thank you as well for being on with us. thank you for the enthusiasm with which you shared your story and a little bit of your experiences with us tonight, Bridget. Great to have you on. Good luck the rest of the way through these times, and look forward to seeing you back on campus in the fall. We certainly hope that. Bridget, thanks for being on.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Bridget Skiba and Joel Walker joining us as guests representing the women's and men's soccer programs, respectively. Let's come back a little bit to Coach Kagan. Matt, just in terms of the season itself that you had in the incredible jump. Clearly it's great coaching, I'll just say that. But what did your student athletes do to help you make what, according to some measurement, is the biggest improvement by any team in the country this past year?
Yeah, I actually don't think it was coaching. I just think we've got great human beings on this team, and I think my role was just to come in and provide. And I've been saying this since I got here, just some hope and belief. And I think those are two really powerful things. And our kids had it, and I think we were able to provide that for them, our staff, and they bought into that, and the results showed it. These kids are relentless workers every single day. They give us everything they have, and we had a really good year. So I'm extremely proud of them. It's obviously a massive jump, and I think it's set a foundation for where we want to go. Obviously, we're not there yet. We came up a little bit short in terms of getting into the tournament, but I think we're right there. And like Bridget said, I think they're really excited, and they're using that as a motivator.
Coach Boss, I want to just ask you kind of the same question, because the turnaround that you saw, and I'm sure respected and admired, and what Matt and the women's program did, your first year, your program took a tremendous jump as well. What are the keys to that? We're seeing it in football with Jonathan Smith kind of building into, in year 3 now, some really exciting things that we look forward to. Coach Boss, what did you try to do to help kind of bring your student athletes into the ability to have that big jump in year 1?
Yeah, it's a great question. And like Matt said, there's this element of creating hope and belief within a team. And for us, it was just so clear that there was times that was lacking, and so to bring in a new group of guys, and I've said it before, but the challenge was we brought in about 15 guys. And so meshing 2 groups together to have them be a cohesive collective, to where they're loving, serving, enjoying one another, and playing in a system that is, congruent with who they are as young men and the type of young men we're trying to call out of them, And so from that standpoint, the guys were excited about that fresh look and really enjoyed it, really bought in and had some success in terms of individually, how they function within our system, how we played, what our cultural expectations were, and then collectively coming together and doing some things that a lot of people thought they couldn't do, which is joy to watch.
You have a very, I'll just use the word not because my mom had the magazines around when I was a kid and remember them occasionally, but you have a very cosmopolitan roster. And that is, when I think about, if I'm counting correctly, 5 players from Spain, players from England, Toronto, Edmonton, France, 3 from South Africa, Uganda. That's quite a mix. Tell us a little bit about how that all works.
Yeah.
I would think that it's exciting in some ways, but what's that like to coach a group that heterogeneous, so to speak?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, one of our core values is family. And when we say family, we mean inclusive and diverse, and I was a player that was, fortunate to grow up in diverse locker rooms, as my playing career evolved. And I found so much joy in learning about different cultures, learning about different ways of life from being arm in arm with a brother competing on the field together, and so that was something that was always really clear to me that I wanted to replicate in our locker room. There's certainly challenges at times because there are such cultural differences, but when we're able to embrace and see those and value those and watch it come together as a collective unit on the field, it makes it that much more beautiful, and that's where, stories of hope stem from. And so that to me was clear. It was always going to be a part of our DNA.
We have another very special guest on. The pop-in guests have been very good. And tonight on the virtual Beaver State Tour, no different. The other day it was Adley Rutschman and Jessica Mendoza hopping in to join us. None other than the Pac-12 Network's Mike Yam joins us here tonight. And we'll get to kind of the why and the wherefore of why Mike has a connection, and a strong one, to Matt Kagan here. But Mike, good evening. It's awesome to have you on the Beaver Virtual State Tour. How are you tonight, Mike?
Mike, I'm doing great. I got to tell you, this is awesome. I've been watching for the last 20 minutes or so, and I'm getting jacked at this point, hearing Bridget and Joel talking about kind of their off-season experiences, and this has been kind of a wild off-season as everyone has experienced themselves. But I haven't even seen any of our other programs in the Pac-12 doing anything like this. So I've been like geeking out just watching coaches and some of the student athletes. It's been awesome, and to hear Jessica Mendoza and Adley Rutschman part of the group, man, like that's big time. So I'm sort of at the bottom of that list, but I'm on the list, so I'll take it.
You're on the list, and we're honored to have you, Mike. Where are you coming to us from, and what have you been doing the last 10 weeks?
Well, I can tell you, I haven't been getting a haircut. As you can see, this is not what I normally do, but it's been crazy. And I know everyone has experienced sort of a different shelter-in-place experience over the last 10 weeks. And I'm in San Francisco because that's where our Pac-12 network studios are. And we actually did our shelter-in-place really early. And in fact, the last real sporting event that we were doing was, and Mike, you know all about this. It was an awesome game. I remember it was Oregon State as a game winner and the whole thing in Las Vegas for Pac-12, for the Pac-12 tournament. We only got the one day of action, but it was a lot of fun. But the last 10 weeks, we've been doing a lot of interviews for the network, still doing Pac-12 playlists. We've been doing our podcast. Actually talked to a couple folks in the science departments, epidemiologists at Oregon State, actually a couple weeks ago, that have going door to door in that Corvallis community, doing some data research to fight COVID-19. So even though we don't have the athletics going on right now and live sports, obviously the Corvallis community is close to my heart for a lot of reasons because of Matt and obviously you guys and the work that's being done on that campus, really tremendous.
Well, Mike, and we'll bring Matt in here too, but we had Jessica Mendoza on because she and Laura Berg were teammates and won a gold medal together. I mean, a great story in itself. So that was a beautiful connection to hear them talk about. But so you and Matt go back a ways. How do you know Matt Kagan?
Oh, yeah. Matt, it's got to be like 20 years or something along those lines. I'll actually never forget, the text message. So the short story is one of Matt's best friends who we grew up with was my college roommate at Fordham in New York. And I think I met Matt. It must have been the summer between my sophomore and junior year. I was visiting my older roommate, our mutual friend, and I kept hearing nonstop about my buddy Jeff. Hey, I got a good friend of mine. He's unbelievable in soccer. Coach Boss, I'm sure you can attest if you've seen Matt on the field, maybe trying to get some shots past Bridget, which I don't know if he's capable of doing that. But so we go way back, and I actually remember heading to Matt's house, and even fast forward all these years, I got the text message from Jeff saying that Matt was taking the job at Oregon State. I got to see him in San Francisco for the coaches meetings, and I got to meet Matt's wife, Jessica, at a wedding last year. So, there's a lot of tie-ins here, and it's awesome to see the success that Matt's had with this program. He's too modest because he won't, I think, correctly described it. Great coaching. And you saw the turnaround this past season. He's not going to take credit for it, but Coach Boss and Coach Chaplin would probably say the same thing. The coaches put a lot of these student athletes in a position to succeed, and the proof is in the pudding.
So Matt, I'm going to have you jump in here. Your version of the longtime friendship here with one of the outstanding voices in broadcasting and Mike Yam. Tell us a little bit about, just a little bit about Mike, how far back you go, what that friendship's been like.
Yeah, so I think it was 99 or 2000 was when we're aging ourselves. So
yeah.
But my recollection of our first meeting was I actually walked into, like Mike said, he was with my best friend growing up. I showed up on campus in the Bronx and walked into the dorm room, and I'm watching this guy who I thought was talking to himself. And he was actually, and I said to my buddy, I said, what is he doing? And he said, he's commentating. So he had he had the volume off on the game, and he was sitting there and he was commentating the game. But I thought he was just talking. I was like, you got a weird roommate, man.
Right.
But, you know, from that was a moment where I knew that this guy was going to be great. And obviously he's very recognizable now and has turned himself into one of the biggest names in sports broadcasting. And I'm very fortunate to call Mike a friend. And he's been great to me. Obviously, when I got the job out here at Oregon State, you know, I let Mike know I was coming out, and, you know, I think, like you said, you know, our buddy Jeff, who we're mutually friends with, you know, let him know, hey, Matt's coming out to Oregon. And, you know, we've been in pretty constant contact since. And obviously when I get to San Francisco for either Pac-12 meetings or whatever else, I try to hit Mike up to at least say hello. So
no doubt. And Mike, you can attest, right? You weren't calling video games but back in the day, I mean, you got the chops. So I know I'm not alone as a broadcaster that was pulling that.
No, and you're not alone in getting the looks from people too. Like what, you know, this guy talking to himself, what's going on? I used to go to games in ballparks and sit somewhere as high as I could in the stands or, you know, gyms and call games. The reps, right? You got to start practicing, and the more reps you get, you got to keep building those up. It sounds like you did quite a bit of that as a student at Fordham.
Oh yeah, there was a whole lot of that, and you know, look, I mean, Mike, I wish I had your voice, because I think maybe my career might have gone a different direction there to do some play-by-play. But you know, to Matt's point, I think even one of the first things, and I'm not just saying this because this is you know, an Oregon State athletics, you know, Zoom call that we're doing here. This is legit. I was thrilled that Matt was taking this job because, you know, he grew up in Connecticut. He had success, obviously, as a soccer player when he was in college, but as a guy that grew up in the Northeast, and I say this to every single coach, whether it's Coach Ruick or Coach Tinkle and even Jonathan Smith, when we've had these conversations, every time I'm in Corvallis, I get homesick. I'm there during the football season. The leaves are changing colors, and it just reminds me of home and the vibe. And you guys know, and I don't know what it's in the secret sauce there at Oregon State, but even hearing Bridget and Joel talk, just the maturity of the student athletes and just that hometown vibe that you guys have, it really is special. It's really unique, and it's a huge differentiator. And I said that to Matt. I said, look, you know, you're going to have some really great programs, whether it's UCLA or Stanford, but you're going to be able to get a certain type of athlete that's going to head to Corvallis that is going to have a lot of interest in playing not only for you, but playing up there. And I'm just thrilled, and I can't wait to see what's still in store for this team.
So nice of you to say it that way, Mike. The one thing that I've heard, Mike, and you'll appreciate this, that Corvallis is a unique and beautiful place. Yeah. And a lot of times student athletes that are considering Oregon State, some have even said that you know, we've had one player on the football team. He told me, I wasn't even really seriously thinking about it until I got there.
Gotta go there.
Now, what I'm wondering, Matt, Terry, maybe both of you, Tanya, if you all want to jump on this real quick before we'll welcome another guest here in a few minutes. In this world we're in, when athletes can't come, how you still feel like, Terry, I'll ask you first, you're able to get Corvallis to recruits during this time and still give what Mike Yam's talking about, what this special place is all about, even if they can't come here physically right now?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I mean, we've had, obviously nothing replaces being on campus, walking on campus, but you know, I think a lot of the campus is the people, you know, and they do such a great job hiring like-minded people that care about the student athlete, that want to see these young men and women grow and use sport as a platform to help them become a professional in whatever it is they do afterwards, you know. So big picture, I think it's the people, the relationships on campus that kind of help foster and grow these young student athletes. But then our ideation team, they've done a great job creating content to push out to our recruits to kind of, as best we can, make them feel like they're living a day in the life and getting a taste of what it is like to be on campus.
Coach Chaplin, Tanya, let me get a quick thought from you about that. I mean, you have 6 incoming freshmen, and a lot of that recruiting goes on for a long time, but you still want to keep getting Oregon State, Corvallis to your future recruitable student athletes. How's that whole process going in your world?
Well, as Terry said, you know, we've worked closely with ideation. That was probably one of the first things that we did the first week that things shut down. It's like, okay, how do we do a virtual tour of Corvallis? How do we still get that out there? How do we make a virtual official visit or rather an unofficial visit for those young people that want to take a look at what Corvallis is. So ideation has done a great job of getting materials together, but we're still looking at, things once June 15th rolls around. How can we do some unofficial visits? And if it's us walking around with cameras to show them Corvallis, and then yet, as Terry stated too, meeting people around the department so that they can really get to see what type of people we have here, and that we really do push the holistic student athlete. We're looking at them in every part. We want to make sure that they grow in every part of their life, not just athletics, and who they are as people is really, really important to everyone here at Oregon State University.
And Matt, to Mike's point, Mike is a Northeast guy, and you were too. When I look at your resume, I don't know how much West Coast time you had, but I see Assumption College, Massachusetts, Worcester State, Evansville, Miami of Florida, Providence, and a lot of time on the other coast. Did it resonate out here, kind of, did Oregon State, and with some of the things Mike Yam just shared? Do you agree with him on that? This area kind of resonated with you. It felt a little bit like home.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I noticed when I got here were the people. Just how genuine the people were, and it makes you have that home feeling. So my family's still out there. They're all in Connecticut, but my wife's family's on the West Coast, so we have a little bit of that. But yeah, I feel we love Corvallis. And I think all the players that in human beings and people that we recruit, I think feel that when they come here. And obviously it's a little tougher now, but like Tanya and Terry just said, our ideation and external team have done such an amazing job with putting these platforms out there for people to kind of see and experience virtually that, I think Oregon State and Corvallis really sell itself. I really do.
Mike, before we let you go, and this is a rare opportunity for us, I'll probably be calling upon you to do a radio hit with us on our local show again, which you've been kind enough to do. But just a couple of quick things from your own world. I saw in your resume that at one point in life, you were the host of the Phil Jackson Show. Yeah. What was the format of that? What was it like to interact with Phil? And have you been watching The Last Dance and kind of getting a feel like you've been in that chair across from him before?
Yeah, it's wild too, because I'm looking, there's 96 participants, and I just saw Isis pop up. I'm like excited. I kind of want to stay on to hear her speak, because I got to meet her when I was in Corvallis. But I used to work, and I still do. Before it was Sirius XM, it was just Sirius Radio, and I worked on the NBA channel, and Phil Jackson had a show, and I got to host the show with Coach, which was an amazing experience. It was actually the year that, and for basketball fans, they would remember when Kobe Bryant had 81 in a basketball game. I actually did the show with Phil the next day, and it was an experience unlike any that I've had in basketball, because Phil, he's built up as sort of the Zen master, and I think The Last Dance really portrays him as certainly a high basketball IQ and a guy that loves the sport, but casually has some other interests besides basketball. And I don't even know if the Last Dance really did it justice, but the reason why I got along with Phil was because I was cool not talking basketball with him. It was an hour show once a week, and Phil, to be honest with you, wanted to do no basketball in that entire show. And our bosses said, look, you got to do a little bit. So I would, kind of do a couple minutes on basketball, and he would want to talk tennis or talk music or just any sort of life lessons or the next book that he was reading. But it was an awesome experience. And I think for everyone who's been watching The Last Dance, it's been eye-opening. I miss basketball back in the 90s, like that physical brand of hoops. Just stylistically, the game has changed so dramatically, at least in my mind. And, I always used to joke, hey, the guy that is, because all these comparisons with Kobe and LeBron and who the GOAT is. And I've always said, hey, whoever you was the best basketball player when you were 12 years old, they'll never be surpassed. And when I was 12, it was Michael Jordan. I was a Knicks fan, but MJ was still the GOAT, and no one, at least in my mind, will surpass him. And watching The Last Dance, man, it's locked in stone for me.
Yeah, no, thank you for reflecting on that. Isis will be on here in just a second, Mike, and you're welcome to stay on. But I wanted to thank you for taking time for us for this,
for sure,
and for the kind things you've said over the years about Oregon State and Beaver Nation. You made the decision you were working at ESPN, but when the Pac-12 networks launched, you came out to a different part of the world and went to work living in San Francisco. That had to be a big career choice, and here you are all these years later. What about that life decision to come from the East to the West?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. It's something that I've really thought about actually the last couple of weeks or so, and shelter in place is probably a big factor there. I've been, I get homesick. I mean, it's 8 years, my family's out there, and I think everyone who's on the Zoom call certainly can understand, because I know how tight that Corvallis community is, and what it means to everyone. And I know for me, because I miss my parents, I miss my, the nieces and nephews and the little ones. I don't get to go to a kindergarten graduation, which kind of bums me out. And I miss those birthdays. But I got to tell you, Mike, it was the best decision I could have made. I was happy at ESPN, but I never thought I would have an opportunity like the one that I had at Pac-12. I mean, it's been 8 years. They gave me the keys to the car. They've let me do all these football shows, these basketball shows, get to meet a ton of student athletes. Like I got to meet Isis a while back. Like it's been a remarkable journey. I'm super grateful, and I have nothing but overwhelmingly positive memories from the last few years. And some of my best friends, and I think anyone who's an Oregon State fan in this whole group is, but Lamar Hurd, who I know really well. Lamar's been one of my best friends. Actually, I was just texting him before I hopped on to let him know that I was doing this. But those relationships, and I think, I talk about that family experience. It's something that Tanya and Matt and Terry all have this luxury of recruiting to. It's a different vibe in Corvallis. I'm not just saying it because I've been on all the campuses in this conference. There really is something special that you guys have there. And I'm pumped for you guys as coaches, and to see the success that you're going to have there, and to hear Joel talking about what he's doing in San Francisco with the SAC community. That's really special. Bridget, I know she's a star for Matt right now. And I know all about what Isis has been able to do for Tanya. So seriously, I can't thank you enough for having me on. And it's been a blast. And I really cannot wait to see some college sports coming up, and hopefully keep those fingers crossed. Everyone stay healthy, wash those hands, wear the mask, do the whole thing, and hopefully we'll be back on the fields pretty soon.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us here.
Yeah,
Great
for
to
sure.
have you.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for inviting
Thanks,
me.
Mike.
All right, stay healthy, everyone.
Matt, thank you for helping to make this connection with Mike. That was a real thrill. Well, Tanya, when you talk about, we're going to bring one of your student athletes in, and then I want to get your reflection on this next guest that it is an honor to welcome in. Isis Lowry joins us. Senior year ended abruptly, Isis. I don't know how you're still dealing with that or coping with that emotionally, but when you hear Mike Yam, when you hear everybody talk about what a special place this is, you came a long way to be part of it. It's maybe hard to believe that your athletic career at Oregon State came to the end as quickly as it did. Are you able to reflect now at all? Does it seem like it just went by in a flash? How are you handling all of that, Isis? Thanks for taking time for us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I honestly think you summed it up so well. It's just, I can't even believe that it's done. Like it honestly took like probably 2 weeks for it everything set in, and I'm done. And I was like, surely not, like that cannot be. And obviously, I was sad, I was mad, I was like, this isn't fair. And then I was like, well, it's not just like my season was ripped away, like literally every other athlete in the country and so many people worldwide have been affected by this. And I think that was something that definitely, in a sense, kind of helped me deal with it, just because I was like, I'm not alone. Like all of my 8 or 7 fellow seniors, we were all in this together. And I think that like one of the hardest things about it was just being like, wow, like our families came all that way. Like my whole family like came out, and then I was like, just kidding. And they're like, oh my gosh. But it was still like my mom, my dad, my sister, and my 2 grandparents were able to come out and like actually see what we didn't know then, but that was the last meet. So I'm just so grateful that they were able to see that. But I think just the more I've been talking about it, in different kinds of ways, I've just been like, wow, like this has literally been the 4 best years of my life. And sure, there have been so many challenges along the way, but I've grown tremendously from those in all aspects, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I'm just so grateful for the opportunities. And I think now that I'm kind of like stepping out of that student athlete mindset, I'm able to like really kind of step back and be like, wow, like so much went into that, and so much goes into the athletes, and so much goes into dedicating that much time and effort into something, that now I'm really kind of just soaking in the enormity of that situation. And especially as an international student, I didn't grow up in the, like, you go to school, you go to high school, then you go to college, and then like that wasn't even in my realm. Like I wasn't even thinking about college athletics when I was 8. I was thinking about the Olympics. So it was just crazy that I'm like, I can't even imagine my life if I hadn't have taken this opportunity. And I'm so glad that now looking back that I did that, because like I have girls back home now asking me about my college experience. And for a country like us, it's not like, you know, we aren't just promoting like do college gymnastics, because obviously we want to like try to help the country and like, you know, the sport of gymnastics grow at home. And I understand that sense, but it's like, I guess I was like a vessel, as well as like a few other girls that were able to go do college gymnastics from Australia as well. Like we are now those people that those girls look up to and are like, oh, well, if they can do it, we can do it. So just so many opportunities have stemmed from my time here at Oregon State. And I'm just so grateful for that.
Isis, what compelled you, inspired you to make that kind of leap, to come up here from down under and compete as a college gymnast? I mean, what were the circumstances that led you here?
Absolutely. I think there was a lot. So I have dual citizenship. My dad's originally from the States. And so he did college, and he kind of grew up in that whole, like, you know, you go to college. If you're an athlete, you want to go to college, you know, that's just like a huge experience. So I kind of grew up like knowing that, but he never pushed that on me. And he obviously, I'm sure he didn't know if I was going to grow up to be as successful as I was in the sport, which was great. But I also had Olivia Vivian, who was an Olympian and Australian team member for a very long time. She ended up going to college and she came to Oregon State. And we were at a nationals one year, and it was 2012 Olympic trials, doubling as national championships as well. So at this point I was eligible for the Olympics, but I was like I was the youngest. I was 15. I was the youngest you could be. So it wasn't super on my radar. And she'd just come back from college, and we were in a group together, like rotating around the competition. And she was like, have you ever heard of like college gymnastics? And I was like, I don't know, like, man. And she's like, you'd be really good at it. And I was like, because she was one of my idols, I was like, she said I'd be good, like, and I was like, oh. And I kind of didn't really think anything of it. And she's like, no, like, I'm serious, like, I'm gonna give you the contact information of Tanya. And I'm like, who's Tanya? She's like, I went to Oregon State. I'm like, what's Oregon State? Like, all I knew of America, I was like, it's California, Florida, New York, and Texas. Like, I didn't really, I'm like, what's Oregon? Like, is that even a place? Like, I just didn't understand. So anyways, she actually gave me Tanya's contact information, and I didn't really reach out until a few years down the track, where I was like, okay, I had a few injuries come up and a few things come up in my career where I was like, okay, I'm either going to have to choose between elite and going the college route. And my dad was like, if I was you, I know exactly what I would do. I would go college, because you can't wake up in 5 years and go, dang, you can't wake up when you're 40 and say, I wish I had done college. Like, you can't do it. You can't be a college athlete at 40. At least I don't think you can. So, and even though in the back of my mind, I was like, I was working for that goal of the Olympics literally for 11, 12 years, to just almost throw that away in a sense. I was like, I can't do that. But I was like, you know what? I'm just willing to take the risk and take the chance, because I knew I needed to switch up, and I knew I wanted to continue gymnastics, and I wanted to do it seriously. And college gymnastics is not a joke. It is not I'm just going to give it a good crack. It's like and I think that's something I didn't understand completely. I was like, oh, well, it can't be harder than training elite. Like, it can't be harder than, and I was like, this is like, in all the best kinds of ways. Like, it just gave me, I never had a team before. I wasn't used to training with 20 other girls my age. It was me and like younger girls. So I don't know. It was just like the best thing I possibly could have done. And my dad always said as well, like in the recruiting process, it's like, you want to go somewhere where the coaches are going to value you, and that you're going to go somewhere where you're wanted. You don't want to go somewhere that's your dream school if they don't want you, because you're not going to get the playing time, or you're not going to feel like you're part of the team. So I think that was something that really drew me to Oregon State, and my family and my parents, because they're like, if we're sending our daughter halfway across the world, it better be a good place for her to be. And I think that's something that we definitely like gauged from the conversations we had with the coaching staff and Tanya. And we absolutely, like, I can say without doubt, it was the best decision for me. So
it's beautifully said, Isis. So let's bring Tanya and Coach Chaplin, kind of your version of similar events. And was it Olivia that kind of connected you with Isis? I mean, Tanya, what do you remember about recruiting Isis to Oregon State?
I actually remember getting a letter from Isis. So Liv didn't necessarily give us her information, but Isis connected with us. And then from there, yes, I asked Isis. And then also we had another young woman from Melbourne as well, Melanie. And both through, even though Mel and Isis are from the same city, they didn't compete with each other. But, you know, obviously I asked those two about her a little bit more before we kind of ventured in, and then made the trek down to Australia to meet with Isis and her family and her grandparents and everybody else, so they knew who these people were that they're sending their daughter to, you know. But yeah, I mean, Isis' journey along the way, it's just a remarkable story. And watching from where she was her freshman year to where she ended her senior year is remarkable as a student athlete. And what I'm really proud of is the growth, the passion that she has for moving forward. You know, she really wants to get into student athlete development. We're fortunate that she's going to be a student coach for us next year while she's getting her master's degree. All of those things, because she really loves to empower women. And she found that passion and that love for the sport again that sometimes can happen. You can lose it a little bit when you're working at the elite level at such a young age in our sport. And college really rejuvenates them. And I've just been so proud of Isis to see how she just took this opportunity and with both hands and just made it the most she could possibly make it.
Thanks, Isis, what did the experience of competing at Oregon State and becoming as you clearly were? You ingratiated yourself with the great fan base at Gill Coliseum for the home meets. Beaver Nation loves you. You love them. What was that like in terms of Tanya talking about kind of re-energizing you for the sport and the love of the sport to compete and perform in the beautiful ways you did throughout your career at Gill Coliseum?
Thank you. I think, and I think every freshman can testify to this, but coming in, you have no idea what is going on. Like, you can be, like, the girls can prepare you and the coaches can prepare you as best they can. But until you step out and like run through that tunnel, like for your first meet, you have no idea. And I didn't understand. I was like, oh yeah, we might get a few hundred people, like whatever. Because the competitions that I'd previously been to, we don't have the same fan base, especially, you know, in Australia, like the US, like get a lot more, like there's just a lot more hype around the sport of gymnastics. And that's something that we're definitely working on. But I was used to competing at the top level and having a few hundred people there for the best athletes in the country. So I come to here and I'm like, well, surely there's not going to be that many people. This town is tiny. And I'm like, how? I'm like, where did all these people come from? I was like, there's no way. Corvallis says this many people that's been hiding and they're coming out to watch gymnastics. And I'm like, this is amazing. So I think just being exposed to such an amazing community, and sure, we might not get 15,000 people like LSU does or 10,000 like UCLA, but the fans that we get show up every single week and they know your name. They know that I'm from Australia. They know a little bit about, and I'm like, wow, like they're just so invested in us. And I think it's almost impossible to not want to give back and to not want to be able to impact as many people as you can. And for me, I didn't realize it at the time, but what fueled me was like being inspired, like in whatever aspect of life that may be. If I feel a connection with someone and I'm able to, if they're able to inspire me, that motivates me to want to inspire other people. So I think that in a strange way, like coming to Oregon State really helped me like develop like a passion for not just gymnastics and inspiring people, but just for life. Like I felt like I just didn't have that spark. I felt like I definitely lost that coming here. And I think what like going through the years and like as I started to, you know, develop more self-confidence and more self-empowerment, I was just like, you know what, like in order for me to get the best out of my experience here, I know I have to give more. And that's something that Tanya's like definitely, she's like, as young women, like you need to know your worth and you need to, like she always says, she's like, you need to see what you want and grab it with both hands. And that's something that I like just resonated with so much, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like how often, like I'll probably never get to go out in front of thousands of people again and do what I love in the sense of like gymnastics. I'm like, that won't, like even if I end up coaching one day, it won't be me doing it. So I was like, I need to make the most of this opportunity. And when I guess I started to, you know, have my crown and do my floor routine and stuff like that, my junior year is where I really started to feel like I was able to make a difference and an impact in people, because I would start being tagged in photos of little girls holding up their crowns and like parents sending DMs saying like, thank you for being such a great role model for my child. And I'd get emotional because I'm like what? Like, so just me kind of embracing who I am in turn helps so many other people kind of like realize and understand their own worth. And that to me was like probably, that is what I remember aside from like scores and performances. Like it's that, like looking into the crowd and seeing a little girl like just have that connection with you. I'm like, I used to be that little girl and now she's looking at me and I'm like, Like, I just didn't think I'd ever be someone like that people would be able to look up to and resonate with, especially for the little girls out there that look like me. Like, I'd have parents coming up and being like, thank you for like being a role model for my child and someone to look up to and be like, I can do that too. So just so many little things came from like really just trying to embrace everything I am and everything I want to be. And like Tanya was saying, like the growth that I've had since freshman to senior year, obviously like physically there was a big change there, but it was more so mentally. And like, I just really, I don't know how to explain it, but I was like, I just want to get the most out of this experience as I can. And when I dove into like all the opportunities we have, that's when I really started to see the biggest benefits for me and for everyone else.
You clearly have had an amazing journey and experience, and it's just you're graduating next month. Congratulations on that. You've been accepted into the graduate school. You're going to be assisting. After that, are you going to kind of see how that coaching thing goes in terms of whether that's a path? You could get into the broadcasting world. You could just do about anything you want to do. What do you have some feel for that at this point?
Yeah, I think another thing, like I realized since I've been here, I was like, there's so much I'm passionate about. And I like, it would be a disservice to not do what I'm passionate about. I think that everyone needs to, and obviously everyone has different passions in whatever like realm that may be. But I was like, I need to just kind of like dive into everything I love rather than be like, I'm just going to try this and see how it goes. I'm like, no, if I try something, I'm going all in. So that's why I'm really excited that I'm able to like, you know, help kind of like work out and like not work out, but I guess like be with the team and like kind of see the other side of it, because I love coaching personally. And I think that like seeing the impact Tanya's had on me and so many of the girls on the team, like I would love to be able to have that kind of impact for other women and other girls, especially in the sport of gymnastics, because so many people don't have the same positive experiences that I had. And I want to be able to help people if they might not have had the greatest experience before college, have that and find that confidence and find that love that everyone deserves to have for themselves. But also student athlete development is something I'm also really passionate about, because if it wasn't for the programs that we have at Oregon State, I wouldn't have really like understood myself and where I'm coming from, where I want to go. So I feel like there's just so many different avenues I can go. And obviously, like, you know, I love to talk, I love to speak in front of people, and I'm like totally comfortable with that. So, you know, you never know, I might be commentating one day, but I guess like whatever I do, I just want to be able to use my platform in a positive way to help inspire and motivate and really just bring out the best in people, because I know that for me, I feel my best when I'm helping others. So whatever I want to do with my life, as long as I'm really able to like, you know, help other people kind of come into their own, I think that's really like the most empowering thing I can do, is help empower other people. You know, they say empower women, and that's something that I've learned through my time here. And, you know, I'm all about just empowerment in general. Obviously, as a woman, I want other women to feel like this as I continue to grow myself. But for all people, like everyone deserves a voice. And even people, you know, in those marginalized communities, they deserve a voice too, even if they feel like they don't have it. So I feel like I can just be a vessel for so many people. I just really want to reach as many as I can in whatever time I have left here. Hopefully it's a really long time. But yeah, so many possibilities. It's crazy. I try not to think about it too much, because it can overwhelm me at times, because I'm just
you have answered that and everything we talked about extremely well, but I can tell there's a lot going on in that in that head of yours, and that's beautiful. That's great to hear. You're here now? You haven't been able to go back home, obviously. When the travel ban is lifted or whatever, are you going to make your way back home for a while or what?
Yeah, so I actually have dual citizenship, so I'm able to go back and forth, which is great. So at the very beginning, it was like the flight prices just went through the roof. Like everywhere else was going down, but Australia for some reason was like, no one's coming. So anyways, I was like, I'm just gonna like wait it out here, and then so my goal is hopefully like early June, and then I'll come back late August, because we still have pretty strict things going on back home. So like when I do get back, I'll be 2 weeks quarantine. Not with my family. I'll be like quarantined in the city. They kind of like bus everyone that's flown internationally, and they're like, stay. So I'll be getting home soon though. And that'll be really great. But in a sense, I've actually been able to talk to my family more, just because obviously it's slowed down a lot at home, and with the time zone and the time change and all of that kind of stuff, it's actually been nice to be able to like, you know, have a few hours on the phone with my mum, because usually, or my dad, because they, you know, they work 9 to 5. So when I wake up, they're asleep. When I come back home, they're at work. So there's just usually not as much time. So that's been really nice. And even when I do go back, we'll have a little bit more time to like spend time with each other and really make the most of that. So yeah.
Awesome. Isis, it's great to talk to you. Look forward to seeing you on campus in the fall and going forward into next winter. Sorry that it ended so abruptly for you, but it sounds like you're making the most of it. Want to thank you for being on with us tonight on this state tour. Real delight to get to talk to you here, and hope we can do it again soon. Thanks, Isis.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Coach Chaplin, I think that with that, I'm not sure there's a better note to end on, Coach. Tanya will say goodbye to the other coaches as well. But Tanya, when I hear her, it's just inspiring. You've had so many wonderful student athletes in your 23 years, and I would never put you in the position to say, so who's your favorite? But I know that she became beloved of Beaver Nation in the 4 years here, and I'm sure for you, your family, her teammates, she's just such a beautiful picture of what your program's all about.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to work with some very special women throughout my career, and they're just all amazing. And to watch how they've grown through their time from their freshman year on through and then into their careers and into their families, it's just wonderful to watch all of those amazing things. And then, and each year you get new ones. We have 6 new people coming in, and we'll at least get Lena and Lacey back, or Lacey Dagan is applying for a 6th year.
Oh, good.
So hopefully she'll get back. And then I know there was a question about Jade Carey. Jade has qualified for the Olympic teams, or not the Olympic team, as for the Olympics as an individual. She can still try for the team, but she's qualified there. So, when the Olympics were delayed, it was pretty devastating to her. But she is looking at starting classes and coursework this summer remotely, and still training though and deferring gymnastically for another year, but she will start her coursework so she can start her journey here at Oregon State as well.
Excellent to hear. Thank you, Tanya, for being on. Keep staying on that the good path you're on with your health, and it's so good to see you back again in the head coaching realm where you belong. We missed you during the season, but glad to know things are better. Thanks for joining us tonight, Tanya.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Terry, Coach Boss, just want to thank you for taking time tonight. This has been, I don't know about you and how much you've checked in, Coach, on these other state tours, but you get a real feel just hearing everybody talk from different sports and different experiences, how special the place is. I know you're a native out of Paloma, so you've known about it for a long time, but to be back here as the head coach must mean a lot to you, especially when you hear people visit the way they have here tonight.
Yeah, certainly. It's a dream come true to come back and be a part of the community that raised you, and to be able to give back to it and see athletes coming from all over the world that share a passion for this place and what it's done for them, and have a real desire to get back to it. So it's really special for me. My blood's in the bricks a little bit, and I couldn't be more thankful to be here. And tonight's such a great reminder. So thanks for having me, Mike.
Thank you, Terry. Great to see you, Coach. Thanks for joining us. And Coach Kagan, finally, really appreciate, the fact that you've embraced the community in such a short period of time. Your wife has, Mookie has, the community has, and Mike Yam. It was just so nice to have Mike's contribution tonight, to see how the two of you from so far have reconnected out here. It was a real pleasure to have you and Mike on. Thanks, Matt, for being on with us tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys doing this year. This was an awesome opportunity for us to connect with a lot of people, so we appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach. Great to talk to you. We'll see you soon. See you in the neighborhood around the park. Matt Kagan, Terry Boss, and Tanya Chaplin joining us, along with our special guests along the way. It was a busy hour plus. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Beaver State Tour with Joel Walker and Bridget Skiba and Mike Yam. It was a fun night with all of the coaches. We've got one more of these, and that'll be Thursday. So you can pre-register to hear from the new wrestling coach, Chris Pendleton, his exciting vision for building the program at Oregon State and the great tradition. We'll have some aspects of the tradition as special guests, I believe, coming up on Thursday as well, and Mark Barnard, the volleyball coach, and others. So thank you for tuning in again and zooming in tonight with us. Hope to see you again on the next edition of the virtual Beaver State Tour Thursday at 5. Go Beavs, and so long, everybody.